2019, the year that the hardest Neptunia game was revealed and released. The game that has haunted me as the one that would continuously kick my ass. Until recently, when I finally beat it. Is that it? Is that it? Is that the end? It took me 14 hours and 33 minutes to finally beat this fucking game. So today, I'm going to show you how I finally beat Neptunia's hardest game. By the way, all the gameplay you see here was from my live streams. If you want to catch them live, make sure you follow my Twitch. Oh, and I recently opened up a Patreon, so if you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Both links are in the description. This game has no title music. Neptunia Shooter, today being the only Neptunia game that was developed by Idea Factory International, not the company proper. They initially showed this game as an April Fool's joke, until it was later announced a week later that it was coming to Steam the following month. Was I excited about that news? Yeah, I was excited to play the game. I always am when it comes to new Neptunia games. This one was different. This game took me 14 total hours to beat a game that's, at most, 9 minutes long. So what happened? Why is this game so hard? Might have something to do with the fact that I'm bad at shoot-em-ups. You know, the type of game where there's tons of bullets on screen and you're just a tiny hitbox. It's like trying to fit into a party you weren't even invited to. There's barely enough wiggle room to fuck up. The goal is simple. Survive and kill. Levels are filled with enemy doggoos, and there's a boss at the end of each parsec. Parsec? Like that thing that lets my friends play Mario Party with me? I didn't know that came in weeb flavor. But enough stalling, let's jump into the game with the first level where we start as Neptune. Pretty simple to understand. She can shoot 3 bullets at a time in front of her, and there's only a small amount of doggoos here. Pretty easy level. At the end of this level, there are 2 big red doggoos that shoot a bunch of tiny red doggoos out of them. It's actually a reference to the game Gradius, where the first level has a pair of volcanoes shooting rocks in the same manner. This is like the only reference this game has, but it wouldn't be a Neptunia game without references. After that, Compa spawns, and you can easily cheese this fight by going in kissing distance. Thank you, random GIF on the Steam Community Hub. After beating each boss, you get to play as that character and swap between them. Compa's attack is lobbing pills downward, very useful for taking out enemies from below, which will be super helpful in this upcoming level. Somehow, level 2 isn't exactly too much harder than the last one, but it is very easy to put yourself in a bad position, and then suddenly there are way too many projectiles to not get hit. But all the same, it's easy to survive at least. For some reason, at the end of this level, there's this random doggoo that comes on screen and just spins across the screen. I'm not sure if this is a reference to something, but I'm upset I can't kill it. Then Iffy comes out, and unfortunately, I don't know how to effectively cheese this fight, so I'm going in head on. She shoots 4 different types of projectiles. Small little balls, colored teardrops, leaves, and lines. If I space out enough, I might get hit by something, but she's overall pretty easy to get through. Now that we have Iffy on our side, we can shoot enemies from behind. And just like that, she just single-handedly became the most useful character in this entire game. And I'll explain why as soon as we get past level 3. Gotta say, this level was very hard the first few attempts at it, but 14 hours later this level is easier than level 2. As long as you effectively switch between each character and make use of Iffy and Neptune when needed, this level is a cakewalk. At the end there's this doggoo that if you shoot will spawn more doggoos, but it can't get close if you just keep shooting, so this is just free points. And then Noir. Noir goes through 3 phases of attacks. First is shooting red doggoos at you that will explode into more projectiles if you let them live. As long as you shoot the doggoos fast enough, they won't be a problem. The second attack is going behind you and shooting ribbons as well as tiny projectiles. The ribbons curve and turn around to try to hit you if they miss the first time, so they can be kinda scary on the first attempt. If Noir is still alive by the end of that pattern, then she goes into her third attack, which is going at the bottom of the screen and having balloons fall from the top, and if she... Did I just type in balloons like the game, not balloons? I really was tired writing the script, huh? Balloons fall from the top of the screen, and if she grabs one, she will float up and shoot tons of projectiles at you. It's probably the scariest phase if you aren't paying attention. Luckily, after many attempts at this boss, learning her movement pattern is the most useful thing here. If you keep shooting at her while keeping pace, she will not be able to get her red dagus out at all. And this deals a ton of damage to her. If she manages to start going into her next phase, get greedy and switch to Iffy and go in for the kiss. She'll die shortly after. Now that we have Noir, her projectile is shooting balloons up. Wait. I wrote balloons properly in this sentence. What the fuck was I on? She shoots balloons and they go up. That is her projectile. This is the most confusing one of the bunch. Like, I get Compa shooting pills, but Noir shooting balloons? I don't see the connection here, but regardless, she is necessary in one level later on, but most of the time, the trajectory of where these balloons go is random, and most of the time, it isn't useful for me. Thanks, Noir. Now it's time for my least favorite level. Level 4. This level has giant dagus that if you kill them, will explode into tiny projectiles. There are also gray dagus that will come out of all sides of the screen, and they will aim and shoot wherever you happen to be. This level I cannot help but get hit in because the giant dagus go in a pattern to where if you don't shoot one, you're gonna get hit. But I guess I also haven't explained that you want to kill things as often as possible. The game rewards you with points for each kill, and if you get enough points, you'll be rewarded with an extra hit point, basically giving you more leeway of making a mistake. So these points matter. Every hit matters. So ignoring these guys simply isn't an option. I hate this level. But then you get to Vert. This is the first boss that I actually had a lot of trouble figuring out how to deal with effectively. Vert goes through 4 different phases of attacks. Her first one is shooting these rocket things that fly in a weird trajectory. It's not exactly aiming at you, more so just looking at you, and it's intimidating nonetheless. She then dashes over to the other side of the screen, creating more projectiles. And then she begins her next attack pattern, throwing rings of dagus at you. If you're lucky, you'll get a pattern where you can easily sneak in between them, but sometimes you gotta get in there to not get hit. Then she goes to the top of the screen and starts throwing down more dagus at you. This phase is the scariest because, like I said, Noir's balloons are random and will sometimes just miss the dagus. It's annoying. Then she starts her next pattern, which is just dashing across the screen repeatedly. Once you find the opening of her dash, it's pretty easy to avoid, but it's still a scary thing to watch. The strategy that I use to defeat her effectively is hilarious to say the least. Before she spawns in, switch to Iffy and hug the right side of the screen. When Vert flies in, get behind her and follow her as you keep shooting her. If you're lucky, you won't get hit by her projectiles and deal a ton of damage to her. But once she dashes over to the other side of the screen, just hope that you get a good enough pattern to finish her off before she goes into her third attack. After beating her, we now have the strongest character in the game. Vert has an attack with a charge, so you have to hold the button long enough for it to be ready. Let go after that, and she dashes across the screen, dealing massive damage to anything it hits. It one-shots every dagu enemy in the game, and on top of that, during the dash itself, she's invincible. So if you find yourself in a tight spot, just let go of the button and get to a safer spot before she comes back from the dash. And now we're on to level 5. This level can get kinda tricky, but I recommend just plowing through the whole thing as Vert. Time your dashes correctly and switch over to Iffy once these yellow and green dagus start coming in. Take care of them fast and switch over to Vert again once they're all gone. There's also this section where yellow dagus fly in from the bottom. You can handle this as Vert, but you can also switch to Compa to deal with it. And then we find ourselves at Blonde. Fuck this fight. I hope you like playing Flappy Bird in a bullet hell. Blonde's got 5 attack patterns, and for 4 of them, she has these gray pillars coming in from the sides of the screen that are indestructible. So you have to maneuver around them while also trying to focus on shooting Blonde. they'll switch the side that they're coming from as Blonde changes her attack pattern as well. So you have to keep an eye on where she is in order to figure out where the pillars are going to come from. The first pattern isn't too bad, it's just her throwing fireballs. Her second attack is her going to the top of the screen and starts throwing down pink beams that'll turn to you once you level with them. Then her third attack is her going to the left side of the screen and shoots a ton of tiny projectiles at you. This one is probably the least scary of the bunch. Then she goes to the bottom of the screen and throws green doggoos upwards, and if they reach the top, will shoot 3 tiny doggoos at you that will then explode into 3 tiny projectiles. I hate this phase. For the love of God, if you get to this phase, just throw in the towel. Because her next phase, her final pattern, is spawning these indestructible tiles that'll circle the screen while she sits at the center. While the tiles are easy to avoid, dealing damage to her is another thing entirely. Vert can bypass these tiles, but anyone else, dream on. So let me just tell you the easiest way to deal with her. Do the same thing with Vert. Switch to Iffy, hug the right side of the screen, and once Blonde flies in, repeat the process. Don't worry about the gray pillars. They're at a consistent pattern that, coincidentally, leave an opening where Blonde is at. So as long as you keep following Blonde, you won't get hit by them. Unfortunately, it won't be enough to finish her off. So when she switches to her second pattern, switch to Noir and just survive while shooting. If she still lives into her third pattern, switch to Iffy and just follow her movement as you shoot her. If you get a good opening, I suppose you could switch to Neptune and get behind her here, but it would be a risky strategy. One I'm not willing to test. With that, Blonde is now in our arsenal of characters, being the final character we save. But also having the worst projectile? She spawns a circle of tiles around her that protect her from oncoming projectiles, but it does pitiful damage. Not even a full circle can kill a single doggoo in the next level. It's kind of pointless to use as an offensive tool. To begin with that, as a defensive tool, if there's a lot of bullets on screen anyway, then you're probably not killing enough doggoos, and Blonde is definitely not going to help you with that. Just don't play her. With that being said though, we are at the final level, and this level is the absolute worst. It is an actual hellhole. You have to use the combination of all the characters you've gathered, minus Blonde, and survive this onslaught of enemies. The only piece of advice I can give you right now is that there are at least 2 sections in this level where there are giant green doggoos that fall from the top of the screen. The only way to deal with them is with Noir. Congratulations, Noir! You're useful in the final level only. And if you manage to survive this hellhole, the final boss appears. R4. This boss is ridiculous. I can't even tell you how many different attacks she has because I've never survived long enough to see all of them. But that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is, how do I beat her? Well, the answer to that is simple. Iffy. Remember everything you learned in the past, however long this video has been so far. Hug that wall, hug her ass, and don't stop. Whatever you do, just keep shooting her. Is she switching sides? Switch to Neptune and hug that ass. This should be enough to finish her off. But she isn't done yet. She has one final attack. The Toho Bullet Hell attack. Switch to Vert and time your dashes correctly and it's over. After 3 years since its release, only 14 hours of actually playing the game, I finally done it. The hardest Neptunia game to ever grace the world. I finally conquered it. And my reward is seeing a congratulations error being fixed by a little doggo. What an amazing game. I might have not gotten all the achievements, but I'm not ready to touch that can of worms. You're telling me to beat this game without getting hit? Buddy, you're asking me to run through hell and back without tripping on the spare. I think I'll tackle that later, because my fingers need a break from this. Bullet hells are not my cup of tea. I can barely even play Saguri games, but after finally beating this game, I can turn to it and say, thank you. It might have ultimately been just a simple 9-minute run, but it was one hell of a run. Forged out of the many failed attempts prior to it, learning the layout of enemy waves, learning the pattern of each boss, and cheesing every single one of them. I can confidently say that if I were to attempt this game again, I can beat it. And that's satisfying enough as it is. The last piece of advice that I can give about this game is that realistically, you don't have to shoot at all. It might be called Neptunia Shooter, but that's merely a suggestion. Once you get to any of the bosses, all you have to do is survive. They're all on a timer. If you just wait out that timer long enough, they'll die themselves. So it makes me wonder what kind of pacifist run exists for this kind of game. And I'm not going to be the one to test that. Don't ask me to do it. This game might not be the biggest footnote in Neptunia's history. There's not even much to say on it at the least. I mean, it got released on PS5 of all things, as a pre-order bonus for Reverse in Japan and as DLC for English releases. Not even on Switch, I mean, come on. Regardless of the significance of this game to the franchise, it was one hell of a challenge for us to conquer. And now I can wear this badge of honor that shows that I beat this game. Thank you all so much for watching. This video was meant to come out weeks ago, and for that entire time I just didn't have the motivation to work on it until now. So I just sat down and just finished it all right here and then. It is currently February 27th. Hopefully it goes up on the date that I just said. Like I mentioned before, I did stream this entire playthrough, and if you guys want to check that out, my Twitch is in the link below. And also, like I mentioned before, my Patreon is a thing. It would really help me out if you guys can support me through that, and subscribe. That's the cool thing to do, is to subscribe and share the video. That's also cool. Sharing the video is probably like really cool. Anyway, I'll see you guys whenever I upload the next video, which I have ideas. I don't know which one I'm going to work on next. I just have ideas. Thanks again, and why not watch another one of my videos? You might like those too.